If you're a podcast host, listen up, this one's for you. My name is Allie Jackson. I'm the host of Finding Mr. Height, a dating and relationship podcast that I've been doing for 4 years now, sharing my positive and practical approach to dating that's built on my own life experience. And I wanted to share another experience that I've had, my secret behind monetizing my show. It's called Red Circle, and I was just telling my colleague about how much I love their platform. With Red Circle, not only am I getting a seamless hosting experience, but I also love the support I receive in ad sales. It's not just typical ad sales either. It's targeted opportunities based on my show and my life. And the platform is super simple. You just set your preferences and Red Circle matches you with sponsors that align with your show. You can vet every opportunity and their platform gives you great analytics. More recently too, my Red Circle team has brought me opportunities outside of my podcast on social media to really augment the podcast partnerships, bring them full circle. I just can't recommend them enough. If you want to give it a try, go to redcircle.com to get your free trial. That's redcircle.com for a free trial.
The following is brought to you by the Social Suplex Podcast Network.
Hello, this is Zack Sabre Jr, New Japan Cup winner 2018. And you're listening to Keepin It Strong Style with my mates. Enjoy.
Yo, this is Rich Latta from One Nation Radio. This is brought to you by the Social Suplex Podcast Network. We present to you the Ace of Podcasts, Keepin It Strong Style. Let's go. It's the Ace of Podcasts, Keepin It Strong Style. Covering New Japan, they ready to hold it down. Jeremy Donovan and the young boy Josh. Come and hit a job out and bury all the frauds. From the Tokyo Dome over to the G1. Social Suplex is the network where we can get it done. I'm a chiller. Let them have it, cause this is just an intro. Keeping the strong style, 6 stars from the get-go, boy. Yeah, from Tampa Bay to the Tokyo Dome, this is Keeping It Strong Style with your hosts, Jeremy Donovan and the young boy Joshua Smith. And thank you for listening.
Welcome to Keeping It Strong Style, the ASA podcast on the Social Suplex Podcast Network. Jeremy Donovan here with the young boy Josh Smith. On today's show, we'll discuss Tanahashi Jam and cover all this news in the world of New Japan Pro Wrestling. Please support our show by subscribing and following the Social Suplex Podcast Network and Keeping It Strong Style on the podcast app of your choice and leave a rating and review. You can also get all the network's podcasts over at socialsuplex.com. Check out our Chopped Tees store, chopped-tees.com/KI Strong Style. That's where you can get your official Keeping It Strong Style merchandise. There's free shipping on every order and 10% off your first order. Chopped-tees.com/KI Strong Style. If you enjoy this podcast, please consider making a one-time or monthly donation by visiting socialsuplex.com/donate and click on the donate button under the Keeping It Strong Style logo. And we are streaming live right now on patreon.com/KI Strong Style for IWGP subscribers. If you want to watch our show live or listen without ads, you can sign up at patreon.com/KI Strong Style. Young boy, how you doing, man?
Doing so well. Glad to be here. Glad that we were able to watch Tanahashi Jam live via New Japan World. That was awesome to see one of the biggest and most shocking title changes of a generation occur live via streaming. That was just something magical. I'm glad that they thought of us and made sure that that was readily accessible for any and everybody that wanted to see that match, you know?
Yeah. Well, that is the hot topic of the last few days, everything that went down at Tanahashi Jam. So we'll go ahead and jump into the main event, all the controversy and news surrounding that main event. So this past weekend, like Josh alluded to, we had the Tanahashi Jam show. That was a produce show for Hiroshi Tanahashi, last show in the Dolphins Arena before it gets torn down. And the semi-main event of the evening was Zack Sabre Jr. defeating Hirooki Goto to once again become the IWGP World Heavyweight Champion. And, you know, as you were joking, Josh, this event was not streamed on NJPW World. And we got some more clarity on exactly how it was broadcasted. Shout out to John from Omikaze. So he, shared on Twitter that this Tanahashi Jam aired on CS Asahi, which is the same network that all NJPW big shows already air on live, along with NJPW World. So it's a paying network you have to pay extra for, either via satellite or streaming. It is not the broadcast or any of the BS Asahi network everyone gets for free. So Asahi paid for exclusivity, so it wouldn't also air on World. They did this once before in Sakura Genesis 2023, but that show did air live on World outside of Japan. Japanese fans complained a ton at the time about foreigners being able to watch it on NJPW World Live when they couldn't. So it seems like this go around, CS Asahi just said, hey, we want full exclusivity just in Japan. Don't stream it internationally for this big Tanahashi Jam event. And then we had the big title change, and some news also coming out from that match. Hirooki Goto is out with a right elbow injury, and he's going to be missing this coming up Friday's New Japan Soul Show from the Tokyo Budokan. So Josh, of all that information, allegedly. What are your thoughts? Also, too, I just heard Joe Lando just did some bonus audio and did mention from people that he knows, his closest sources are saying that this was the plan all along, to go from Zack to Goto back to Zack, that there was nothing that caused this plan to change. So Josh, what are your thoughts on all this stuff going down with Zack and the belt back?
Well, that last statement that you just threw out there, that's news to me. I hadn't heard that, but I do think Joe is probably one of the only people, and I'm not like trying to, blow him up or whatever, I think they called, was it glaze him up or whatever? Yeah, I'm not trying to glaze my dog, but he is like one of the few people that are out there that when they say they have sources in Japan, I generally trust what he has to say. Even more so than like some respected journalists. Like if Sean Ross Sapp or like Dave Meltzer tell me something about Japan, I mean, if they tell me anything about Western wrestling, I'm pretty much going to take it at face value. If they tell me something about Japanese wrestling, I'm like, okay, like, they don't really have those kinds of sources any longer. It's almost more up to the smaller shows like us and some, not that we're small by any means, but it's almost more up to the types of shows that have inroads into Japan to actually verify stuff like that and kind of break that news. So that is interesting to me. If this was in case the plan all along. As far as like the outcome, I'm surprised like a lot. I mean, I was just completely shocked here. On the one hand, I guess it's not the most shocking thing that could have ever possibly happened, because even just recently we were talking about, all throughout this reign, it felt like Goto could lose this title at any given moment. There were a lot of questions regarding the outcome of the match between Zack and Goto in the US. Like, why didn't they go to a definitive finish, and why are we getting a rematch? So the idea that they're going back to Zack and that this was a plan all along, that seems to kind of make sense from a booking standpoint. But what you really kind of have to question is, creatively, did they tell this story in a enriching and satisfying way? Was there call for this change? Like, did the fans, the audience, were they like kind of clued in? I'm not saying that like we need to know every time the title is going to switch necessarily, but at the same time, if it's a major match, then you should promote it and book it in a way where the anticipation is hot for it. And that, for me, didn't feel like they accomplished that whatsoever. This felt like, out of all the defenses that Goto was going to have, the most assured that this was a throwaway title defense, especially considering the broadcast aspect of it, that it's not going to be broadcast on New Japan World. That that kind of even made it seem even more so like, yeah, this is definitely, we don't even know if we're going to see this match or not, was kind of the word on the street at the time. And there's also the business aspect, kind of comparing, the numbers that Zack did throughout the last title reign. More so, I would say the numbers in the Tokyo Dome more so than anything else. And then kind of comparing and contrasting that with some of the business that's been done under Goto. It's a little shocking, honestly.
Yeah, man, I was really shocked. I woke up Sunday morning, scrolling through Twitter and saw, the picture of Zack, submission hold on Goto, red shoes calling for the ref stoppage. I was like, this gotta be a mistake. Like, what's going on here? And it's like, this is a show that was not broadcasted on NJPW World. I know there are some people like, well, it's a Japanese company. They're doing this for the domestic audience, yada, yada, yada. Well, I get it. Not everything has to be for the international fans, but this was your top foreign star winning the belt back on a, pretty big show that you were not airing to your international audience. So that seemed like kind of like a big miss to me. And then when you look at the booking, like you mentioned, it didn't really seem like Zack was geared up to get the title back. It seemed like they, really cooled Zack off after losing the title to Goto. I mean, he failed to win New Japan Cup. He did get a win over Finlay in Chicago. He had the draw with Goto in California. But outside of that, I mean, it seemed like Zack had really cooled off, and they were maybe transitioning him into tag team, maybe with Oiwa. Just like you mentioned, the story was not there for Zack to win the title back. And then, he wins, and it's like, we just end this Goto title reign. It kind of seems like out of nowhere, which had done great business, had been built up. There's a big story behind it. And to me, like, Goto was like the last face of that golden era that has the title that a young guy of this era could have toppled to, kind of really fully close the door on the golden era of New Japan, of that generation of wrestlers, and establish just a new generation. I felt like a guy like Tsuji or Oiwa or Uemura should have been built up to that point. We even speculated about Aaron Wolf coming in and beating Goto. It should have gone to a young guy. And hey, I love Zack Sabre Jr. I think he's probably one of the best wrestlers on the current New Japan roster, one of the best wrestlers in the world. Big fan of Zack. So in a vacuum, like, happy for Zack, glad he won the title, but I feel like they did a disservice to him and how this match came about, how it was built, and kind of what the fan perspective is now of him being champion again.
Yeah, I mean, I see where you're coming from. There are some points that I think are interesting that you brought up. There's some things I don't necessarily 100% agree with, but it is an interesting point that you mentioned that, this is a non-domestic star. It's their biggest, foreigner in the company. And the show is broadcast exclusively for, paid Japanese fans in the country. That doesn't seem, there's nothing wrong with that per se, but from a marketing standpoint, it seems to be a big swing and a miss because, yes, you want to endear Zack as a star to the domestic audience, but there's an undeniable aspect of it to where it's supposed to also appeal internationally. And if you're not even broadcasting it to an international audience and you didn't really build the match in a meaningful way, how could anybody have expected this? How can anybody be excited about it? It is no slight against Zack Sabre Jr. as a performer. I've seen some people kind of like throw out the shade, and I'm like, well, the guy was the wrestler of the year in the company last year.
Yeah.
And I haven't seen the match yet, to be honest with you. I was able to, provide a link for us, but this is the week before a holiday, and my job is just like bam, 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 slammed like back to back to back. So I haven't even had the time to watch the match. I hear fantastic things about it. I'm glad about that. And you're never going to hear this podcast be like, well, the wrestling doesn't matter. Well, yes, the wrestling does fucking matter. The star procuring the stars does fucking matter. So I'm glad about that. And my understanding is this might be the best Goto match since he won the title from Zack Sabre Jr. earlier this year. So that's awesome. But this is not a great way to start off a title run with a guy that was hit and miss last year. The timing of it just prior to the G1, I was just looking through Cage Match and I was trying to see if they've ever done a title change this close, from the time they Rambo and Slam Pig, strong stance on the moves versus stories debate. I can't recall a time where they announced the G1 field, then switched the title in such short succession, especially if they ever have. I can't recall them ever having done that in what I would call the modern era, which is basically like the New Japan World era, where the challenger gets the briefcase and challenges at the Tokyo Dome on 1-4, so basically going back to 2014, essentially 2013.
Yeah.
I can't recall them ever having done this. So I think the timing is a little strange. I'm always open to new and exciting things because we have talked about how formulaic Goto can get. And so that's kind of cool, but build it better. Make us care about the match. I didn't care about the match. I was not anticipating anything about this at all. It seemed like literally a token IWGP title defense on a Tanahashi produce show that nobody was really going to hardly probably see anyways. And then they switched the title. I guess it does kind of harken back to the days of WWF and, Bret Hart beating Ric Flair in where was that, Manitoba or wherever the fuck.
Yeah.
So, it is what it is. But one thing, I think two things that play into this. Okay. I do think that this has something to do with Forbidden Door. I think that initially, because of the shocking nature of this, there's a lot of folks who were out there saying an audible was called, or, the booking was, manipulated. Maybe Tony called.
TK called up Goto and was like, yeah, I want Zack as champ going into Forbidden Door.
I don't think that that's a lot of sense. I do, however, I think anybody with a brain, what would the real reason be behind putting the title on Zack a few weeks before the G1 and before Forbidden Door? You know what I mean? They're going to the British market. They got a tested and tried and true, UK champion. I think it just makes sense. If you're telling me that this was always the plan, then that even to me confirms more so that this is probably what they've been thinking all along, was we'll give Goto this run. We'll put the title on Zack. He'll go into Forbidden Door with the title. I'm not even fully convinced he walks into the Tokyo Dome as champion, but I do think that this has something to do with the fact that they're going to the UK and they want him to be the champion walking into, into where are they going? They're going to Wembley Arena?
No, O2, I think.
Or the O2. Yeah, that's right. They're doing O2. I think that that's a big part of it. Now, I'm not putting the blame on, I'm not saying this is an AEW initiative or Tony Khan, although I'm sure they were clued in on it and things like that. But I don't think they called Goto and manipulated the booking. But I also think it has, for anyone who's this has nothing to do with Forbidden Door. Yeah, it fucking does, because they wouldn't have probably put the title. There's no other real reason that I can think of that you put the title on Zack on this kind of short notice if it doesn't have something to do with Forbidden Door. The other thing too, and I'll kick it back to you because I'm sure you have your points that you want to make. I'm not convinced on the point that you made that a young guy had to beat Goto to get the rub here, because I'm not so convinced that he was this beacon of a champion that, I get what you're saying. He is, everything you said is true. He is one of the last guys that represents that era, but I don't think even as strong as this title reign has been, that he has done enough to be established as that lofty mountain for these guys to climb. I don't think that, for instance, if Tsuji was the guy that beat him, or Gabe Kidd right now, I think that'd be great. And that there's no denying it would, them beating a top champion after a lengthy reign for the title. Of course, that's great, but I don't think it's this career torch passing sort of thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
What I personally think that they might be doing, and who knows with this company, because the booking is all over the fucking place. And we're long overdue for like, and I know we've said it before, but it's becoming more of a reality. Like, should Goto be around? I don't fucking know. Like, this is getting
it needs to be gate over.
Gate over. It's getting ridiculous. But I have the belief that possibly, maybe, they are either trying to gear up a Goto redemption arc out of this whole thing, or I don't know, some of the rumors that have come out this week about him and House of Torture seem to indicate that maybe that's not the case.
Yeah, there was a shirt that got posted on the Japanese website of the picture of Goto with his kids, placed over, I think it was like Narita's face or Sho's face, and saying House of Torture is my family now. And then it got taken down real quick, apparently.
I don't know if that was a rib or if that was real. I didn't see it on the website. I saw it in our Discord. And people are claiming it was on the website. I almost feel like it's a psyop and maybe they're just fucking trolling us, because I can't imagine they sell that shirt. It looked like shit. It looked like it looked like Michael Scott did the photo editing.
Yeah, to me it feels like maybe Goto is moving on a feud with House of Torture, and that's their way to troll him and make fun of the whole family aspect. That's what it felt like more to me than, all right, Goto's joining House of Torture.
Yeah, bro, if he did, like, let's say he did, that just doesn't make a lot of sense, like, narratively. How many fucking dudes are going to be in the group? You know what I mean? Especially, like, we want to Sonata him this fast after he just had, like, a pretty successful title reign. Doesn't really make a lot of sense to me. But the last point I was trying to make was maybe putting the title on Zack for a second time, and then maybe, I don't know if it's going to be immediately, but maybe eventually going back to Goto. Now, yeah, we don't have an Okada. Yeah, we don't have a Naito, and Tanahashi's best days are behind him. So we don't have those big monumental stars for these guys to beat. But this is a way you can really solidify Zack is one of the big players. I know that he kind of, like we talked about at the end of last year, it felt that way, but then he got cooled down. I'm not saying I'm in favor of this decision, because I think it's a bewildering decision, but there is an undeniable fact that you put the title on him twice, he's kind of fucking made. You put the title on Goto a second time, he's kind of fucking made. And this is a bit of a buffer between now and them being ready to crown one of these young guys. And I'm not even saying that that's right or that's what they should be doing, because everyone is crying out for them to go with somebody, you know, anybody, and they're not doing it. But if they really don't feel comfortable, or maybe comfort, if they don't feel confident for whatever reason in actually handing the reins off to one of these guys, this might be their way to kind of like buffer. If it was me, I would have kept the title on Goto. I don't fucking get why we did this. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me, especially comparing the numbers that Goto did to Zack. And I don't think Zack's reign was as disastrous as people try to make it out to be. It really wasn't. But the Tokyo Dome numbers were kind of abysmal. That's the like one glaring thing that you're like, shit.
The numbers were down, and then just the match, the main event at the Tokyo Dome wasn't great. And that's a really big black eye on Zack's title reign.
Mm-hmm. Well, that was Shota Umino's fault, but yes.
Right.
and you know, I think he did I think he did the best he could do with the creative that was handed to him. But also it's clear that, you know, it's not as simple as taking a guy that you booked in the upper mid for 7 or 8, however many years it was, 7 years, 8 years. And then you just shine him up and you're like, all right, you're champion now after all the other stars left. It doesn't work out always like that.
Yeah, I think this could have been more fruitful. You had Zack maybe won the title back in like 2017 or 2018. I'll say no, that would have interfered with, you know, stuff that happened with Okada and Naito and Kenny and all that stuff. But maybe a quick
fuck yeah, Naito. We're going with Zack.
Yeah. But yeah, maybe a quick reign back then would have helped make Zack more credible now, and maybe not make him feel like such a, you know, bridesmaid where, you know, yeah, all the champions are gone now, and so now you're the only one left to belt up. And yeah, I do think that there's potential that this could have something to do with Forbidden Door, also, yeah, being in London. But I mean, the show is sold out. They don't necessarily need Zack to be champion going into that show. And Zack's a big enough star where like you can do a big Zack match without it being an IWGP title match or him being in a title match. Just putting Zack in London, I think, is big enough match for that card. But maybe for whatever reason, they want Zack going into that show as a champion, and to maybe that match is going to get a bigger spot on the card.
Could it have been part of the negotiation? I mean, we're just kind of wildly speculating here, but I mean, you know, like his contract was due. They had to renegotiate. He re-signed. And what if like part of it was like, we're going to put the title on you twice over the next year, and you're going to headline in London, you know, on the semi-main event of Forbidden Door with the title, you know, or like that's what he asked for and that's what he's getting, something like that. You know what I mean? I wouldn't put that outside of the realm of possibilities. You know, it's we've seen very similar things happening on the other side of the pond.
Yeah. And maybe it was
promises made, promises kept.
Yeah. And maybe it wasn't even an ask. Maybe they were like, well, we need to keep Zack. So, hey, Zack, hey, yeah, you're going to be champ again.
This is what we'll do for you.
Yeah. We're going to take care of your brother. You're going to go into your home country with a belt. You know, TK is going to put you on semi-main event against somebody. You're going to get a big win in your home country with the championship. And you're going to G1. Well, you'll leave G1 as champion and go into the fall as champion.
Yeah, I mean, who knows? And I mean, there's still time, hypothetically. It does make it to where it's like, okay, calling the G1, and I guess we'll have Chris on in 2 weeks?
Yeah.
You know, that's our annual classic where we preview the G1, but it's going to be nuts because it's kind of uncharted territory, unprecedented waters, and we kind of have to traverse those and figure out, like, is the person who's champion right now even going to be champion come January, let alone all the other people that are involved in this tournament? You know, there is one thing that is, I don't know if this attracts people to the G1 necessarily. I would dare say it doesn't because of the negative publicity and connotation over, you know, the bad creative. But for those people who are pretty much undeterred, like us, who are just diehard fans, we're probably going to stick around unless something really, really egregious requires us to pack up shop. It does make it kind of more interesting than if Goto had walked in with the championship. And I'm not even trying to play devil's advocate, but now I'm like, fuck, I don't know where Goto or Zack stand going into this tournament, let alone all the other people that I was originally trying to kind of figure out, like, how they factored into the Goto verse, you know, and the Goto verse might just be fucking shattered now. We could literally, those two guys could both, I could see a very real scenario where neither one of them are in play for the Tokyo Dome main event whatsoever. And we have two completely fresh people going into that Dome show. Yeah.
And, you know, like you mentioned, it does make things unpredictable. And I think in a vacuum, the decision to go back to Zack, I think, is fine. It's how they got there. And
it's how they did it.
There was no compelling story. There was no great build. Like that draw in California, that was like a wet fart. People were not.
It was perplexing.
Yeah, people were not happy about that draw. People weren't clamoring for, we need to see, you know, Goto Zack one more time. Like there just wasn't build or hype. And then again, you put this on a show that's exclusive in Japan. You even have, you know, Japanese fans who only watch through World. I saw a lot of those on Twitter that were complaining about not being able to watch the show because they weren't going to pay for CS Asahi because they have New Japan World. And so I think there's a lot of baffling, just bewildering decisions made around how we got here. And again, like on paper, like this could have been a good idea, but the execution was just horrible. And I think it's another booking decision that's left a bad taste in fans' mouth. And, you know, we're getting ready to go into one of the hottest seasons of the calendar year. And I feel like fan interest is at an all-time low right now.
Hottest time of the year. Yeah, right. My God. So Jeremy, tell me, I know that you saw some of Tanahashi Jam today. You saw this match. I think you were pretty impressed with the match itself in a vacuum. Is that correct?
Yeah. So, you know, I put the show on and got to this match and, you know, I sat there with arms folded. It's like, I already know the result. I think it's dumb. I don't want to enjoy this match. And then they start wrestling, and they had this freaking awesome match. Like, I think it might be better than the Goto title win.
Okay, so we're talking about a potential New Japan Match of the Year contender here, basically.
Yeah, I didn't want it to be, but they just kept going. And the way that Zack worked the arm all throughout the match, great counters. There was a great sequence where like Goto hits the GTR, the front GTR, and then he bounces off the rope. Zack catches him with the Zack driver. Goto kicks out. Like, Goto kicked out of so many moves in this match. Like, Zack did like, I feel like 2 or 3 Zack drivers, even the spinning Zack driver, and Goto just kept kicking out. And Zack would tie Goto up in all these submission holds. And like, I knew what the finish was. So every time he tied Goto up, I was waiting for, oh, here's the stoppage. And every time I thought it wasn't. Goto kept scratching and clawing and getting to the ropes. And like, Zack would, have the arm and the leg, and like Goto would have to keep fighting and fighting and fighting and get to the ropes. And then towards the end of the match, there was a great counter where like, Zack hits the Zack driver, Goto kicks out, but Zack goes right into an armbar and continues to work on the arm. And then from that point on, it just seemed like Goto did a great job. Because to me, it looked like his arm was like really injured, and also they're saying it is, but I don't know. But he did an excellent job of selling the arm. It looked like he was in really dire pain. And then finally, Zack got him all wrapped up again, and he was in the middle of the ring, nowhere near the ropes, and Red Shoes called for the match, called for a stoppage, and Zack won the title. So they did some really great work. It was high paced, great counters, great stories. Hard hitting. It was a really great matchup, and it's unfortunate that I think that people are having to sail 7 seas to try and get their eyes on this thing. And we did have I'm looking through like to see how many like June title changes there's ever been, and it's so few. There's been some in July. Okada did beat AJ Styles just before the G1 one year, but man, it's pretty dire. Interesting. Yeah. We did have some questions here about this. So Good Soldier Odd Jobs in Discord says, what sort of booking decisions would it take for you to rebrand into Keeping It Wrong Style? I'd rather just shut down. We wouldn't do that, but yeah, this is it's really bewildering. Just it's hard to kind of understand. I do get that booking is probably a really running the creative for a major wrestling company, and how many different factors are involved in that. It's probably so frustrating. At the same time, it feels like we're only able to tell a certain number of types of stories when it comes to Gato over the past couple of years, and creatively it feels burned out, and it's not fun, Yeah. And that leads it to a follow-up question from Nfervert in the Discord. So this is a good way of asking the question I had for the pod myself. At what point do we give up hope the booking becomes sensible again anytime soon? Yeah, I mean, it does start to make you really question what you're watching and why you're watching it, and what's the redeeming factor as a fan for you, Yeah. And, for me, I would still say part of the reason I'm such a big fan of New Japan, a lot of it does have to do with the character presentation. A lot of it has to do with the tradition of what, Shinihan represents, that cerulean blue, the way that the sports centric presentation of it all, like, those are things that really appeal to me. And the history and things like that. And then the wrestling, I still think across the board, it's still the best wrestling, even if it's not hitting the highs of maybe the late to mid 2010s. I still think night in and night out, there is better wrestling in New Japan than AEW or even CMLL. Although that argument is, that gap is getting closer and closer and closer. And
I think there's no denying that over the past few years, very often the company that's hitting the highest highs, not consistently, but like who's peaking the highest, it's generally going to be AEW. They usually do have the match of the year on a level that surpasses what New Japan's top level matches are producing. Even if I still think consistently, I think New Japan has a better in-ring product. But there's so many things going on in this company. You and Chris, you guys did a really great job a few weeks back talking about like the mid-year point of the halfway point of the year and kind of analyzing what's gone well, what's gone bad. And since that episode, Dominion's come, and now this title change has come, plus everything that revolved around Dominion, plus the New Japan Soul Tour. It's like, it's not a good streak right now. So I don't know. I feel like if I weren't doing this podcast, I would probably just be swooping in, cherry picking the shit that mattered to me. And I'm sure if you're listening, that's probably what you're doing for the majority of you. And hopefully things turn around, but I think it's going to take a creative change. I think that maybe some of these star introductions are good things, but the more that I'm doing this Tanahashi series, I'm getting into like the early 2000s, the more I'm seeing parallels between what's happening now and what's happened in the past. And I'm like, fuck, like time really is a flat circle. And I don't know if, when Nakamura came in, people talked about him very much in the same way they're talking about Aaron Wolf right now. And it didn't quite work out in that exact same way. So, eventually it did. But I don't know if like bringing in Aaron Wolf is going to be the savior of the company, much in the same way that like bringing in Brock Lesnar, Bob Sapp, Johnny Lawler, those things didn't save the company. It took a revitalization of like the working style and the creative. Like it's going to take going back to what made this company great in the first place. Not to sound like a MAGA person, but we need to make New Japan great again.
Yeah. And yeah, I think as long as Goto is in charge of booking, I don't think we're going to see any big dramatic changes that need to happen. And, right now in the wrestling world, there's so much wrestling available and there's so much great wrestling that's happening around the world. Stardom is having a really great year right now. They're having a lot of great matches. CMLL has been on fire for the last few years, but they're having another great year again. And that Fantastica Mania week, there were so many great matches from that week. Also, AEW is on fire right now, going into All in Texas. So I feel like if you want great wrestling, it's easy to find. And New Japan, yes, they do have great wrestling, but I think the booking decisions are really making it hard to invest and get locked in. And like you mentioned, we're going into G1 and we're at an all-time low for everything coming out of Dominion, and now this title match and House of Torture, at the forefront. They have like 3 or 4 matches on every card. Like there's just a lot of things right now that are, kind of lacking, and I just don't know if it's ever going to change under Goto. Like we need to clean out the booking room, and Tanahashi as president, like I don't know how much he has to play in the booking. I know he had his whole 10-point plan, but like I have a hard time.
Drain the swamp.
Yeah. I'm surprised a guy like Tanahashi would be on board for the direction that the company's going in, especially based off his whole 10-point thing that he had last year.
Well, Jeremy, one of the things that was like a hallmark that it was like a very much a noticeable sign of like a leading indicator that led to the dark ages of New Japan was major shifts and turnovers in stars for the company, major departures, major stars retiring. It was an increased presence of multiple names and influences in the creative and the management and the conflicts that arose across the board. And I'm not saying that we are privy to what's going on backstage, but if you are to believe what has been, spoken about in hushed tones over the last few years. And then you look at the product you're seeing on screen, it is very clearly not a cohesive company where the left hand knows what the right is doing. And that was already kind of going on before the decline. You know, we would hear what Western wrestlers were dealing with when it came to dealing with creative and management. And now it's only exasperated as time's gone on. And then, you know, the other indicator was, you know, these kind of weird booking decisions that turned the audience off from the product. And it was like, you know, you lose your stars, you have this turmoil in the background, and then you have this creative that is antagonistical to the fan base. That's not a recipe for success.
Yeah. And, you know, earlier you did mention Aaron Wolf, and he did make his first on-screen appearance during this Tanahashi Jam show. He did get a pretty good reaction. So that was kind of encouraging to see. Again, I don't know if he's going to be, you know, the quote-unquote savior and, you know, fully turn the company around, but it was good to see him already kind of getting a good crowd reaction. Almost 5,000 people in that building all knew who he was. Big cheers. So I think that's a positive sign for so far for him being a part of the company.
Yeah, I mean, one thing that we might look back on and where I might wind up having some egg on my face is last week when people asked us to kind of book out his year. You know, I feel like the booking I gave was pretty, I would say, charitable to someone that they really want to fast track and push. But, you know, we had literally just had the press conference. Was that same day as we recorded last week, basically?
Yeah, it was that morning. Yeah.
You know, so we obviously not being like Japanese citizens and not 100% clued in to every facet of their society, even though we've known about Aaron Wolf for a while, we've talked about him on the show. I don't know if we necessarily were as understanding a week ago how big of a deal this might potentially be. Now, I've heard conflicting things, but, you know, people in the know, they seem to think that this is a much bigger signing than maybe we had indicated last week. And if that is to be the case, then it seems like he might be on a track for an even faster push than you or I. I think you were a bit even more charitable than I was.
I was a little bit more generous. I was trying to
you were calling for, like, you know, within the year, but to me, I'm like, fuck, that seems but, you know, that I think what you were pushing for is closer in line with what WWE, just to kind of throw a comparison out there, like what they've done in the past with, like, say, Kurt Angle.
Yeah.
For example, something like that.
Yeah, definitely. So we'll see.
But
we'll see what happens with old Aaron Wolf. Next question.
Oh, Aaron.
Rainbow Sanford says, do you think changing the world title on a show that large portions of the audience can't watch in a timely manner was the plan all along, or something that came about due to the office politics of TBSI?
Well, you know, we don't know all the politics of what goes in, what entails their television, you know, deals. We were fortunate enough to hear a thing or two about, you know, what the, you know, agreement was and what took place there. But I don't know if when they made this plan earlier this year, if that's the way it went down, that they knew that this would be an exclusive to Japanese only television show, or who knows? You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. I don't have enough information to really comment on that definitively.
Yeah. And, you know, with the whole way it was set up, maybe the whole deal was they got an extra pay or whatever, extra revenue for it being exclusive. Maybe CSI, that channel or whatever, paid more to have exclusive, and maybe that was more revenue for New Japan. Maybe that's why they did it. So from a business standpoint, maybe you can't knock them there. We don't know what the full deal was.
That's what I've been saying to people about CM Punk, but apparently he didn't get paid extra to go to that show, so I take it back. Oh man.
Next question here from Let's Commission 7252. At some point in the match, when did you figure that Goto was losing the belt, or did you think he was going to pull it off and retain? I mean, unfortunately,
you went in spoiled.
Right. I mean, I think, you know, most people were spoiled before they even got a chance to watch the match. So, like, yeah, I mean, had I not been spoiled, there was a point where Goto hit, like, the GTR. I a couple times, and like the last one he hit, I was like, oh, like if I had not known, I'm like, oh, that could have gotten me had I not known the result, because like it was like every finish, he's been killing people with GTR, and he hit multiple on Zack until that last one. I was like, oh, that could have been the finish where he won. Of course, Zack kicks out and the match keeps going. So that would have been the point had I not been spoiled. He also asked, will the Tanahashi Jam show better than Wrestle Kingdom this year? I think when the award show comes up later this year, I think this show should be a nominee.
Well, I haven't seen the show yet. I have heard that it's an enjoyable show. What I've seen on paper doesn't look like a show of the year contender to me, but I don't know. I mean, they have a lot of outside talent. There's a lot of Tanahashi on Tanahashi Jam. It's a aptly named show.
Yeah.
But Jeremy, you would know better than I would, honestly. Yeah,
I'm not confident to say it's going to end up making the final 10 or whatever shows we picked this year. It was a fun watch, but for me, there was still too much House of Torture up and down this card. But you did have like Shun Skywalker and Fujinami and some of the other names kind of popping up here. So it was a fun show. I mean, the crowd, like I said, it was almost 5,000 people. They were lively the whole show. Production looked great. That's a big crowd for New Japan just in the regular course of their year. Yeah. So, I mean, there's a lot of good things going for the show. I'll see big title change. But I'll see. We'll have to wait come more close to October, November time to see if it's going to make the cut. You still have a lot of G1 shows. You got King of Pro Wrestling, Power Struggle that could potentially make the list. So maybe it could be an outside fringe candidate.
You know what I think is annoying, Jeremy? Maybe this is a good time to segue into this. It's just something I thought of. I get really annoyed at how gatekeepery and like assholey wrestling fans can be when it comes to stuff like this. And what I mean by that is like I saw all facets of wrestling fan just speak so snarkily and so authoritatively about shit that they just don't know anything about. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I saw people that were like, this was a house show, blah, 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 blah. And so they're freaking out about it being a house show. Right. And it's really not. But then you have the other fans like more people saw this on Japanese television and you don't know what you're talking about. And it's like, comes to find out like that's not actually true either. So it's like it's two people that are both wrong saying a bunch of shit. And then it's like, of course we know why this happened. Forbidden Door, Tony Khan made the call, blah, blah, blah. And then you have people on the other side like, that wouldn't make any fucking sense. Of course they didn't do it. It's like, take a step back, think logically, and maybe just speak kindly. Like, you know what I mean? Like all these people are acting like they know what the fuck is going on and they don't know what the fuck is going on. And we are somewhat on the inside and even we don't know what the fuck is going on. And that's why like you don't see our Twitter like trying to go around sunning the whole fucking audience. But I see Japanese and non-Japanese fan base, fans trying to do that shit all the time. It's so annoying.
That's why I don't really even post on Twitter much nowadays, because you can't post without some idiot on one of those two sides coming at you, trying to tell you why you're wrong for whatever you post. It's like, I rarely post now because somebody's...
I see it other places too.
Yeah.
I see it like Reddit. I see it on Discord. I see it on, I'm not on there anymore, but like Facebook. I see Facebook groups where people are doing this shit. And it's like, I saw people being like, oh, well, he was injured, the red X. And then people were like, there was no X. And it's just like, it's crazy. It's like, everybody has to be an expert and speak like they know what is going on. And it's like, it's okay for all of us to just literally be like, what the fuck is going on with this company? That's all that really matters.
Right.
At the end of the day. It doesn't matter why it happened. Well, I guess it does to some extent, but it's also like, why the fuck is this happening? Like, this doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
And we don't have to be the experts. All we have to do is just voice our displeasure with, I don't like this shit.
Yeah, the old One Nation Radio, if they're putting out trash, we got to rip them to bits. Now, speaking of One Nation Radio, Rich Latta says, Zack Sabre Jr. Really? I
will say this. I don't have a problem with Zack being the champion because he was a great champion. But it was like you said, they didn't do a good job getting us to a point where there was any sort of belief that he was in line for another title shot. Of course, hindsight's 2020. If you want to be Monday morning quarterback and look back at his year and be like, well, he did beat Finley and well, they did keep him strong here. And but it doesn't matter just about the wins and losses. Sorry, Chris. I know that wins and losses do matter, but I'm sure he would agree with me that it's not just about that. It's also about the promotional and creative backing behind it. And it's like, if there's no juice behind this guy, you're not putting him in the forefront. He's not in meaningful matches. There's not really good and impassioned, promos or segments taking place. And then you just suddenly put the title back on him after he's seemingly been cooled off on screen. It just doesn't really make sense. And it's a huge swing and a miss. It doesn't endear itself, especially since there are so many young guys that the audience are dying to get behind. Just one of them. They don't know which one, but the whole audience is like Oiwa, Tsuji, Kid, whoever the fuck. and they haven't done it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it was kind of defensible before because it was like, well, they're giving him time. Goto's got this all-time run, but then they end it this way and it's like, geez, what the fuck are we doing?
Yeah, and you look back at the year, like there's been really two major stories booking-wise this year. The rise of Goto and then the Bullet Club House of Torture Civil War, which has led to them, and their renewed push that happened at Dominion. Those have been like the two main booking focuses this year. And Zack was a side character in the Goto story. And then TMDK and him have kind of been put on the back burner. They weren't a big creative focus. Like this all could have been different had Zack been in some hot feuds leading up to this and keeping him fresh, keeping him built up, have him in a major story. But really the stories are revolved around Goto and Bull Club, War Dogs, and House of Torture, their Dog Pound Cage match, all the stuff with Finley and Evil. Like those were like the big programs and major focus where, TMDK were just in multi-mans most of the time and Hartley Jackson eating the pin, and Zack wasn't really doing anything outside of the few singles matches he may have had in between those points.
Let me throw a direct comparison just because we're getting ready to go to Texas. We're fortunate enough to be at All In. We're gonna see the 5th Kenny Omega and Okada match, which is really fucking cool. Who knows if it'll be as good as the other matches they had in New Japan in the past? Maybe, maybe not. But when you look at specifically the 4th match between those guys, right? Mm-hmm. Had matches. They were so critically acclaimed. And then what did they do? Kenny failed twice. And then he didn't win the G1 and they were kept apart. And Kenny went off and he did his own thing with the red belt. And he was in the Bullet Club Civil War shit with Cody and yada, yada, yada. And all that time, Okada was doing his story. And it was like when they introduced the title match, it came out of fucking nowhere. There wasn't actually a build for it. It was just like Okada had passed his all-time title defense record and called out Kenny, and Kenny walked out, and that was it. They just made the match. And people were excited for the match, but I also remember there being that kind of came out of nowhere. They weren't even interacting, but why it worked? Because Kenny was kept hot the entire time and he was preoccupied doing meaningful things and his profile stayed at a certain level to where when they just needed to dust him off and get him ready to challenge for the title, that's all they had to do is just drag his ass out to the ring and say we're going to fucking do it. This wasn't that, you know what I mean? And it's not a perfect 1-for-1 comparison, but it speaks to the idea that if someone is kept hot, they're kept with a good profile, and it easily could have been a situation going into this match where we're they've been pushing Zack all year, and you have to wonder why they've been pushing Zack, but they didn't.
Yeah. Rambo says, Josh, they can't keep other challengers hot. Gotta spend half the card getting hot over.
I'm so fucking over House of Torture. It's not even funny. I think it's something that just shouldn't be in the company, honestly.
Yeah, it's getting real bad. Next question here from Dragon Master Adam. Is Tsuji going to stick to his guns and boycott Japanese shows because the IWGP title didn't main event? On a serious note, do you think it's not going on last to value the title anyway, especially since it's happening a fair amount recently?
I'm shocked they did that again. I didn't see the show. I get it. I get that it's a produce show called Tanahashi Jam. You want Tanahashi to send the crowd home happy. And it is like his retirement tour, but it is John Cena CM Punkism is what's going on there. You know what I mean? Like you're telling the audience that this guy's not the real draw. He's not the real, Hulk Hogan Ultimate Warriorism is what that shit is called.
Yeah, that's another kind of baffling decision about all this thing too. It's like, yeah, not only did they do all this stuff, but yeah, the match was a semi-main event on this show. And again, you want to show that these guys are main eventers and top stars, and you can't cover that with double main evento. I'm sorry, I'm not buying that. This was a semi-main event on the show. You want Zack and Goto to be draws and be seen as bigger stars. Put them in those positions. Obviously, Goto's had a ton of main events, but Zack, he's a guy that, his title reign was questionable last year due to some of the drawing of the houses. It's like, well, put him in more main events, push him harder. Don't keep putting him in these semi-main event spots and not making him a strong champion.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Yeah. Next question here for Death Triangle 720. With the most unprecedented title change, do you think this was a last-minute decision to have a memorable moment for New Japan on TV?
No. Well, for our understanding of things, like you said, and who knows? I'm not saying that John from Omikaze is wrong. I'm saying that I don't know enough to know whether he is right or wrong. I'm sure that he knows what he's talking about, but could it be that there are some missing details that we aren't privy to when it comes to the facts surrounding how this was broadcast and everything like that? Sure. But if what he said is true and that this was something they always do, they're always on that channel while they also broadcast on New Japan World, then that doesn't really seem to make a lot of sense to me, right? And if what we're hearing from Joe and his sources are true and that this has been long time planned, and that does line up with, Dave Meltzer did come out and say that nobody in AEW influenced, I don't know what his exact words are, but he said that they had nothing to do with it, right?
Yeah.
If we're hearing that it was a long-term plan, and then that just means it was a long-term plan. There was nobody this wasn't a sudden change. This was always the plan. If that's what it was, then that's what it was.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe we'll hear more from the Social Suplex newsletter. Next issue comes out. I'm sure they'll know something.
Yeah, there's been a lot of great stuff in the newsletter. A new issue dropped this past Sunday. But yeah, I don't think this was let's have this memorable moment last minute. Like this, yeah, it seemed like this was a long-term decision based on everything we're hearing. I know Gale's booking has been bad and questionable, but I don't think even he would do just a quick last-minute title change just to try and create a quote-unquote moment. So yeah, I don't think that's the deal at all. Next question here. And do you think it doesn't make sense to not stream the event for viewers overseas with a big title change happening? And yeah, we kind of touched on that already. And again, it's Zack, your biggest foreign international star, winning the championship again, and it could not be streamed to foreign/international audiences. I think that's a big miss. I feel like anytime you're having a world title match, whether the title's going to change or not, I feel like it should be accessible to your whole audience in some form or fashion, and to alienate the international fans and even some of the domestic fans, because you got to remember, apparently this is a paid channel and this was not free broadcast. Like, people still would have had to pay on top of their New Japan World subscription to watch this. So it just seems like a whole big mess to do this.
Here's a perfect one-to-one comparison. AEW has a streaming service and they're broadcasting their big shows exclusively on television on Max. Let's just say. and you don't have to pay extra for it, but you just have to have Max to be able to watch the show, or you need to go to their AEW streaming site. But then for one show, they decide we're only going to have it on Max, and the people that are paying for the subscription to the streaming service, they aren't going to have it. You know, so it doesn't matter if you have cable. It's not on TBS or TNT. It's only on Max. Like, you know, it's a paid channel. Similar thing.
Yeah, and then again, yeah, you would alienate a whole ton. Obviously, there are some people on Max, but then you're limiting who could all see that potential show.
Precisely.
Next question. He says, with Goto no longer champion, do you think the company will do a repeat on their booking formula and have Goto win the G1 to get the title back, or will they have a young guy win the G1?
That one I'm not so sure about. That's a tough decision, honestly. I could easily see a situation where classic New Japan booking, like Goto does not win the G1, but he beats. Are him and Zack in the same block?
I don't think so. Hold on, let me pull it up.
Oh, but you know what? I'm like, fuck, they've already wrestled 3 times this year. If they were to do another match, let's say if they end up in a G1 match, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's 4 matches. And then if they end up at like King of Pro Wrestling, that's 5 matches in the year. That's like a fucking lot.
Yeah.
But what I was going to say is
they're in different blocks. Goto's A block, Zack's B block.
But there's always the chance that they end up in like playoff situation against one another, cross block.
Right.
And Goto beats him and qualifies for a title shot, something like that. You know what? I would much prefer personally that maybe Goto does well in the G1, gets into those top 3, doesn't win it, unless you want him to win it and you want him to go to the G1 or to Wrestle Kingdom, but maybe he does really, really, really well, doesn't end up winning it, but is able to come out post-match and challenge Zack or some shit. Because, you know, sometimes that's all you got to do in this company is just come out and challenge.
Yeah.
And he gets the October shot. And you could do it that way. They also might just, if they're gearing up for a potential House of Torture versus Hantai Goto sort of thing, because haven't they been feuding with Hantai anyways?
On a Soul Tour, yes, things have shifted to Hantai versus House of Torture.
He's supposed to be the quote unquote leader of the group. He might just get distracted away and sucked into the vortex that is Evil and Sonata, and that be that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, Evil and Sonata are both in his block also.
Oh, God. Hey, here is the one positive coming out of all of this. Evil and Sonata do not get to face the IWGP World Heavyweight Champion in the G1 to potentially set up future, you know, 3rd quarter or 4th quarter title matches.
Yeah, that's a very redeeming thing from all this. But yeah, I don't know if I'm kind of torn. Like, I think it would be cool for Goto to finally win a G1, but then
he has won the G1.
That's true. Yeah, it's been so long I forgot. Yeah,
yeah, he won it in like 2008.
That's right.
And he didn't get a world title shot. He challenged for the it might not be 2008, might be like 2006 or something. I don't know. All I know is he challenged and
we lost Josh. But yeah, it's been so long that he won the G1. I forgot about it, but I mean, it still would be a cool moment to see him win the G1 again. But
I don't know what happened there. I got dropped, but I'm back.
Yeah, you got dropped, and I think that the background might be lagging your video too.
Oh, okay. I'll drop this. I just thought it'd be cool to do something cool, but now I feel stupid. But no, what I was gonna say is like he didn't even get a real title shot off of that win. He ended up facing Keiji Muto for the Triple Crown title, and that was his quote unquote, you know, challenge. Yeah, and he lost. He didn't even get an IWGP shot out of it.
Yeah. So yeah, it could be cool for him to win and get a title shot, maybe win the title back. But at the same time, I feel like that's another G1 gone that a young guy could win.
It's got to be a young guy or a new star. Like, it needs to be like either Takeshita or one of the young guys, basically.
Yeah. Next question. Do you think...
And they're not even that young, bro. Like, they've been in, some of these guys been in the system like 8 years.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Some of those dudes are like mid-30s.
Who was that one? Remember that one chick that we're like, what's her name? Aaliyah? She was like in the NXT system forever. She like never made it to the main roster.
Yeah, Aaliyah, yeah.
Yeah, they like, some of these dudes been in the New Japan system like as long as Aaliyah was in NXT, bro. Like,
damn.
It's true.
Next question. Do you think if they were going to do a surprise title change, it could have been more beneficial to have Shingo win it instead of ZSJ?
I mean, that there is the part of me that's like, if you're just going to put the title on Zack and there hasn't been a shift in his character or story arc, and there's nothing really compelling behind it, why didn't we just go with Shingo? Like, the crowd turned 50-50 at Dominion for that match. And there is still the question of what the fuck is going on with LIJ and what is going to happen long term with Shingo. And there seemed to be a narrative that was starting to take place right around the time that Naito was leaving, and that's kind of gone by the wayside as well. So yeah, if it could be Zack, why couldn't it be Shingo is my question. I feel like that would have, for me personally as a fan, I find that more enthralling personally.
Yeah, I think there's a lot more compelling options they could have done with Shingo. There was a lot of people, fans were kind of speculating on, what this could mean if Shingo would have won. So I think that could have been bigger. Or, even if they wanted Zack to win, building it better to get to Dominion, have him win, and then have Zack defend against somebody else on this show and retain, instead of doing a title change on a show where not everybody could see it.
Yeah, this whole thing is just so weird. I don't fucking know.
Next question. With Forbidden Door 4 coming after G1, do you think they just got the easy route and have ZSJ defend at the show?
I think that there is an aspect to that. And I'm not saying that conspiratorially. I'm not like trying to, this isn't bad faith cope. It's not that. I'm putting the two pieces together. They've got a upcoming UK show, and they went back to their UK champion just prior to that show. It just kind of makes sense to me. I don't know. Is that so weird to think that there might be some correlation between those two things?
No, I think it definitely makes sense, and there potentially could be a Royal Quest show in the fall too. So, I mean, if you want him to be champion for that too as well.
I don't think they're doing Royal Quest.
I saw people speculating, so maybe it might not be happening, but if you were doing it, like, that makes sense too. But yeah, I think
it would be so weird for them to do Royal Quest because Tanahashi already announced that his final date in the UK is Forbidden Door. And you would think that if they were going to do additional shows in the UK, that he would, they would milk it and be like, this is his last show. And they would try to draw an extra house. I don't think they're doing a show there personally. Yeah. I could be wrong.
Yeah. Would be weird, but I do think, Forbidden Door, Zack will defend against somebody on that show. Next question from user Red Bear Hugh. Any news on the ratings Tanahashi Jam did for TVSI, and how does it compare to the world subscription numbers?
No. Yeah,
we don't have any numbers on that. So yeah, I don't think we'll get any numbers on that either. Next question from Seven Hat. Who should challenge Zack for the title?
I don't know, Gabe Kidd.
Yeah, I mean, Gabe and Zack always have great matches. That'd be good. Suji, their G1 final match.
Should beat him.
Yeah, flip the belt. Don't know how much longer we have Gabe Kidd. Push him while you got him. Next question from Strong Style Demon. Who do you think was or should have been in line to get the belt off of Goto? I find it insane that he dropped it to Zack, who otherwise is one of my favorites, but I had no clue of who was standing in line based on the booking. Is this a way to allow Takeshita to get the title from Zack?
I don't think you needed to switch the title to potentially go to Takeshita if that's what you're looking to do. I think Takeshita could reasonably beat basically anybody in the company, and it would be totally fine. It doesn't matter who it is. I mean, if I had to go back and just look at the whole trajectory of it all, I would have still just had Dave Finlay win the title back at Sakura Genesis. to me, that still is the title change that made the most sense, and I think would have had the most potential upside of any of the title defenses had they gone the other way. And I still stand by that.
Yeah, I mean, also Finlay would have gotten a ton of heat by beating Goto, and you could have done something compelling there. But let's say you did want to keep the belt on Goto. I would have kept him as champ through G1 and wait to take the belt off of him afterwards.
Yeah, once he didn't lose it to Zack, there was nothing narratively that took place where, even though it was like, yes, they could beat him, it didn't make sense to beat him in any of these situations, including this one. So it did seem like, yeah, have him go through G1 as champion. Do I think he should have still gone to the Dome as champion? Maybe, but I also could have seen him dropping the title prior if necessary, depending on what they were, hoping to line up. But doing it here is just weird as fuck.
Yeah. Next question from Tim Hunter. Did the match on Sunday have the greatest incredible match to disagreeable booking imbalance, or can you think of crazier examples?
I don't know. I can't think of one. I know people in the Discord mentioned Wrestle Kingdom 12. I'm not that high on the Wrestle Kingdom 12 match personally. I actually the only Tokyo Dome Naito and Okada match that I really, really like is the what was that, Wrestle Kingdom? What year was that? 16?
What, the 2020 one?
Yeah.
You think that?
Was it Wrestle Kingdom 18? I've lost track.
I think that was 14.
I was gonna say 14, but that seemed like I don't know. Like that seems too long ago. But that's the only Dome match between them that I really love. I didn't love Wrestle Kingdom 12 or Wrestle Kingdom what was it, 8?
Yeah.
Yeah. But I don't know. Can you think of an example of like a really great match where the booking was kind of disagreeable?
Nothing's coming to mind right now. I mean, when I think of like New Japan, I think, I wanted Kenny to beat Tanahashi at Wrestle Kingdom 13, but I wouldn't say that was like a totally disagreeable booking decision, obviously based on what was happening. But yeah, I don't know. I'm sure I can think of something later, but yeah, nothing's coming to mind right now.
Where the entire like audience, had a backlash about it, and it was, I don't know. I can't think of anything personally.
Yeah, same here. Next question from Dark Soldier. So we're probably getting Goto getting his title back on King of Pro Wrestling, right?
Maybe, but the G1 is one big question mark, and how we get to that point is kind of dubious, Yeah, because they are in different blocks, and you have to find a creative way to get back to that match. And will Zack have any title defenses before then? Maybe just Forbidden Door?
Yeah, Forbidden Door and maybe Destruction. I don't know exactly what they're doing in September.
Oh, that's right. I forget, they always have like Destruction.
But they don't always do world title matches like that, Destruction, so.
Right. They do Destruction, then King of Pro Wrestling, and then Power Struggle.
Yeah.
I always forget about Destruction and Power Struggle. Or what, they've gone by other names in other years, but yeah, I always forget about those.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It seems so weird, bro. Like I don't even know if it's, I know everybody wants us to give our insights and predictions, and that's part of the fun of the speculation and, pre-booking and blah, blah. And rarely is anybody actually even accurate or right when it comes to this shit. But in the same way where it's hard for people to invest in what's going on, it's hard for me to like have any sort of confidence in what they're doing to where I'm like, yeah, so I think this makes sense. Maybe they're going to go here and do this. Bro, none of this makes any fucking sense. Like,
yeah.
I can't even rationalize it. The only thing that rationally makes sense is like, yeah, we had to keep Zack around. We got to give him a London title run and, work that into the contract, keep him happy. But that's like the only thing that makes sense to me.
Yeah. And like the booking is so hard to predict, and like, not because it's like good, unpredictable booking. Like, man, there's so many great options. It's like, nothing makes sense. So I have no idea how to even begin to predict or fantasy book what the rest of the year looks like, because nothing's making sense. I feel like things are just happening, and I have no idea how to get a hold of what's happening right now.
That's me. That's my life.
We did have some stats here, courtesy of our friend Chris Samsa. So he said with Zack Sabre Jr., he made history for his victory over Hirooki Goto for the IWGP World Heavyweight Championship on June 29th, as it marked the first time in New Japan Pro Wrestling's history the top title changed hands via a referee stoppage. And I know you and him went back and forth on clarification on what a referee stoppage actually is.
Well, because there have been knockouts and TKOs in IWGP matches. The first one that I thought of was like Fujita versus Tanahashi in 2004. And in that match, Tanahashi gets knocked out. And, you know, at first, like Chris was like, well, the knockout is usually like a 10 count, right? You know, and I was like, yeah, but in this one, like Red Shoes is just looking at Tanahashi's eyes and he's knocked out and he's just like, ring the bell. You know what I mean? Like he grabs his face and shakes him and he's out and he just fucking rings the bell. And I'm like, how is that different? But then I did some research, and apparently this is a topic that has come up in some of the deep Puro circles with when it comes to New Japan's kayfabe, and basically comes down to this. A TKO or a knockout stoppage and a quote unquote ref stoppage, they're both ref stoppages. The difference being that the knockout is when the guy goes unconscious and the referee stops the fight because he's gone unconscious.
Yeah.
Versus in this situation, he was in a submission hold. He couldn't protect himself. He wasn't going to submit. Referee calls for the bell. So he didn't go unconscious. It's the referee using his discretion. And that's the delineating line there. It's like, did the guy get actually knocked out? Or did the referee just protect him?
Yeah.
And apparently there has never been a situation in a IWGP World Title match where the referee called for the stoppage early.
Yeah.
When the guy wasn't knocked out.
And he also shared that Zack's win over Goto was the first time the top title in NJPW changed hands in Aichi in over 2 decades, with the last title change in Aichi occurring on December 12th, 2004, with Tenzan defeating Kensei Sasaki. Then the last stat here, Zack's win over Goto marked the first time since Fujita defeated Scott Norton on April 9th, 2001. The top title in NJPW changed hands in Japan in a match that was not the main event on the card.
Yeah, it's rare.
Yeah.
It's rare that it's ever not the main event, and it's rare if it does, you know, co-main event that it changes hands.
Yeah. So then running through the rest of Tanahashi Jam, show opened up. We had Daiki Otoshima versus Katsura Murashima in a 10-minute time limit draw. I did not see this match. On the version I had, this match was not there, but I'm assuming it was your traditional Young Lion standard matchup there. Then the first match on the main card, we had Tanahashi, Taguchi, and Umino defeating Hiromu Takahashi, Leona, and Tatsumi Fujinami. So just kind of a fun opening matchup here. Crowd popped really big for Fujinami, and Fujinami was throwing out dragon screws even on Tanahashi. So the crowd was really enjoying that. But towards the end there was triple submissions, and Tanahashi's team got the win. Then following that, we had House of Torture team of Chase, Evil, Narita, and Yujiro defeating Taichi, Ishii, Yoshihashi, and Yuya Uemura. So we had House of Torture shenanigans here. Narita using the push-up bar to hit Yoshihashi, allowing Chase to hit the package pile driver to get the win here. So with that, I'm kind of hoping that since Chase is pinning Yoshihashi in preview tags, maybe Yoshihashi will actually win the G1 qualifier match and knock old Cowboy Chase out of the G1. Then following that, we had the never openweight title match, Boltin Oleg going V1, defeating Blue Justice Yuji Nagata in 9 minutes and 14 seconds. And good first defense here for Boltin. Nagata was working over the knee of Bolton, put on one of the Nagata leg locks onto Bolton. So I thought Bolton did a great job selling the leg there, but also showing some fighting spirit, powering through, hits the Bolton shake, and eventually hits the kamikaze to get the win over Nagata. And a question here from Dark Soldiers: as Nagata got world and never title matches this year, was this his attempt to make sure that Old stay on top? And I would say yes. Nagata is all about Old's on top. Then following that, we had Dragon Kid, El Desperado, Master Wato, and Yo defeating the House of Torture team of Doki, Sanada, Sho, and Yoshinobu Kanemaru. So always fun seeing Dragon Kid in the mix, and Hantai here was able to overcome the House of Torture shenanigans. You had Master Wato picking up the win for the team. So it seems like they're building them up for the upcoming tag team title match coming up, I think, either Friday or on Sunday. Then following that, you had the NJPW World Television Title Open Challenge match. El Phantasmo defeating the Bone Soldier Taiji Ishimori in 11 minutes and 32 seconds. So I thought this was a good answer to the Open Challenge. It's always fun to get some open weight matches. And there is a history between ELP and Ishimori being tag team partners during their time in Bullet Club proper. So they had really great chemistry. I thought it was a really fun matchup, a lot of high flying, and ELP ends up getting the win via roll up. And we had a question here from Ansign Kangaroo in the Discord. Why did ELP have a worse match than the combined forces of 71-year-old Tatsumi Fujinami, his failed son, and the entire House of Torture? I don't know. I thought that's a little...
That doesn't seem accurate.
Yeah, I don't know,
I've
man.
seen the match, but I doubt that that's true.
Yeah, man, I think it's just, white man hate on ELP. I don't know. I really enjoyed the match. I'd go like 3.5 on it. I thought it was really a fun, high-flying, high-paced matchup. Something you'd want out of these TV title open challenges.
Like, I get it. There's definitely criticisms against Ishimori or against ELP, and sometimes that can be valid, but like, he had a worse match than Tatsumi Fujinami and Leona and the House of Torture. Okay.
Yeah.
Like, that's not true.
The next up, we had Shingo Takagi and Yota Tsuji. They teamed up with their mystery partner, which ended up being Shun Skywalker, and they defeated the United Empire team of Callum Newman, Great O'Khan, and Jacob Austin Young. So big crowd reaction for Shun Skywalker being the X. Got over pretty well. They played off the history of him and Shingo. They were, they were teasing not getting along, but they were able to coexist and do some cool double team maneuvers here. And Shun getting the win over Jacob Austin Young. And we had a question here from Relentless HT. There's a lot of excitement and concern with the Dragon Gate community over Shun Skywalker's appearance in Tanahashi Jam. This is in part of him saying he'll leave the company if he loses the Kobe World main event against Yamato. Do you see him jumping ship to New Japan or do a Takeshita-like deal where he gets a dual contract?
I have no clue, but like, it's a new world right now, and people jumping from companies, it's not as taboo as it's been in the past. So is it possible that something like that could happen? I think absolutely.
Yeah, I think it'd be cool. A cool acquisition, get a fresh guy in there, somebody that's over Japanese audience. Maybe they do the whole dual contract thing, or maybe he is going to lose. I don't know the full, Dragon Gate storylines. Yeah, maybe he is going to lose to Yamato and jump to New Japan. Then the semi-main event, like we talked about, we had Zack Sabre Jr. defeating Hirooki Goto by ref stoppage. And then the main event was Hiroshi Tanahashi and Naomichi Marufuji defeating Kaito Kiyomiya and Rei Oiwa in 19 minutes and 10 seconds. I thought this was a fun main event. I know it was Tanahashi Jam, but I was surprised. Tanahashi hitting the high fly flow, pinning Oiwa clean as a sheet, 1, 2, 3 in the middle here, sending the fans home happy. The old aces, Tanahashi and Marufuji being two guys that should be, the forefronts of their company.
Didn't he just beat Oiwa?
He just beat Uemura.
Oh, I get those two mixed up a lot.
But Uemura,
that's probably quasi-racist.
Uemura is in the same block as Tanahashi. If Oiwa beats Kojima on Friday, Oiwa will also be in the same block as Tanahashi. So I'm assuming both guys
are gonna
get their wins back in G1. Yeah. And then 2 questions here from Dark Soldier. Is it me or does Shun Skywalker look like Excalibur's long lost brother? There's some
different nationalities
semblance in the masks there. And his other question,
they resemble each other in the mask.
His other question, with him being a part of the main event, is there still any chance Kiyomiya goes over to New Japan, or has that ship sailed?
No clue.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know, but I mean, it would be cool to get another fresh talent, but I mean, based on how they booked him that last G1, I don't know if they'd be, quick to push him. And then that takes us to the Death Pain Invitational that happened on June 21st in Corkin Hall for an attendance of 1,481. Do you see any of these other matches besides the main event?
I haven't seen anything from the Death Pain Invitational. You might say that I am a little unprepared for this show, but it in my defense, one of those was a paid pay-per-view and the other one was not available for streaming and is only been available illegally like for the past basically today, essentially. So yeah, I do intend, however, to watch Tanahashi Jam in its entirety, and I do intend to watch the Death Pain Invitational main event, which I've heard just stellar things about it.
Yeah, and that was the only match that I caught from this show. And yeah, that was the fluorescent light tube glass board barbed wire death match with El Desperado defeating Jun Kasai in 29 minutes and 31 seconds to retain the championship. And yeah, this match was just absolutely insane. I thought it was cool in the match. Before the match, they had Tanahashi out there in the suit holding up the title. So that would be pretty cool if that's going to be his new thing when he's retiring, if he's going to come out for these title matches and hold the title up. But yeah, this match was just absolutely nuts. Totally lived up to the hype. Both guys wearing white. Tons of light tubes broken. Super insane spots. There was the super Tiger Destroyer off the top of a rope through a pane of glass. Despy throwing Kasai off the top of the ladder from inside the ring to the outside through a board with glass, and just so many bumps in the ring with shards of glass. There was a great spot where Despy does the Pinche Loco, and Kasai kicks out at one, and he just fires up, starts grabbing light tubes, starts bashing his head over it. And yeah, these guys were just absolutely nuts, insane. And finish came with Despy hitting several Pinche Locos in the pile driver Pinche Loco version in the pile of shards to get the win over Jun Kasai, and gave Tanahashi a big bloody hug after the match. And yeah, this match was just insane, bloody, lived up to the hype, was a great final chapter in their feud.
I think, the two most heralded matches of their feud were the one that they had at the Despy Doki, Tai Chi Mania match, and then this most recent triple threat match that also involved who was in that match with them?
Dude, I always forget the third guy that was in that match.
Masada? I forget. Makeda, yeah. I don't know. I've seen him wrestle live multiple times, but I'm forgetting his fucking name. But how did you feel like this one rated amongst those matches?
I would put it very high up there. I'm like close to 5 stars on this, and I'm not even a deathmatch guy.
Yeah.
But just the spots that they were doing were just absolutely nuts. Immortality 777 says Despy's mask having ridges so that it catches the blood, and having his white mask turn red at the end of the match was gnarly. Yeah, there was just so many spots. Even though we've seen these guys face off in death matches before, and also there was callbacks to previous matches, there was just still so many spots where I audibly like gasped and yelled out as they were working this match.
I'm looking forward to it. It's been a busy weekend and a busy week, but I for sure intend to watch that. And it sounds like right now it's probably the lead contender for junior match of the year.
Yeah. Two things I did find funny. They started the match exchanging headlocks, which I thought was absolutely funny. And
wrestling.
And then there was one point in the match where Jun Kasai hits a low blow, and one of the commentators goes, no DQ. Like, yes, clearly they've been bashing each other over the heads with light tubes for 5 minutes. Thank you for pointing out that there's no DQ because of the low blow.
Well, they've had a lot of hype for Fujita and his upcoming title defense on New Japan social media, and they did like an interview series with him. So it's they're shifting gears now, getting ready to kind of gear up for Despi versus Fujita. I'll run through some of the shows that we got coming up this week. So we're going to continue on the Seoul Tour, Night 8, Friday, July 4th from Tokyo, Budokan. We have the first match, Zayn J versus Tatsuya Matsumoto. Daiki Nagai and Katsuya Murashima will team up to take on Masatori Yasuda and Shoma Kato. Umino, Taichi, Tiger Mask, Ishii, and Nagata take on the House of Torture team of Togo, Doki, Evil, Sonata, and Kanemaru. Fourth match of the night, you've got Hiromu, Shingo, Tsuji, the artists formerly known as LIJ, teaming up to take on the United Empires, Callum Newman, Great O'Khan, and JAY.
And real quick, I think they're just going to go for this whole like unaffiliated thing as their name, because they're selling merch that has like unaffiliated in Japanese. I'm like, so
cool. so people are going to buy those shirts until they finally do affiliate in some way, and then those shirts will become worthless. So that's great. Work the marks. Fifth match of the night, you got Despi, Bolton, and Uemura taking on the TMDK team of Harley Jackson, Fujita, and ZSJ. Sixth match of the night, you've got A block play-in match, Satoshi Kojima taking on Ryohei Oiwa. Did that news break last week about Kojima replacing Don Fale?
Last week, the news came out that Don Fale had death in the family and would be missing the remainder of the tour and was replaced by my man Satoshi Kojima.
I couldn't remember if we covered that last week in the news or if that occurred in between the episodes, but yeah. Seventh match of the night, you have B block playing as Yoshihashi takes on Chase Owens. Your semi-main event, the never openweight 6-man tag team titles are on the line as the House of Torture trio of Narita, Sho, and Yujiro defend the titles against Wato, Yano, and Yo. Sounds stellar. Your main event for the evening is the IWGP Global Heavyweight title on the line as the champion Gabe Kidd defends against one Hiroshi Tanahashi. And then on Sunday, July 6th from Corkin Hall, we have the continuing Seoul Tour. As of this, the time of this recording, we have 3 matches announced. Tiger Mask taking on Hiroshi Tanahashi in his final Ace retirement tour. We also have the IWGP Junior Heavyweight Tag Team titles on the line as the House of Torture's Doki and Sho defend against Wato and Yo. And then the main event will be the IWGP Junior Heavyweight title being defended as the champion El Desperado defends against the Best of Super Junior winner, Kosei Fujita.
Yeah, so some pretty big matches coming up Friday and Sunday. When we look at the G1 play-in matches, I think we're already pretty confident that Oiwa was going to get through and beat Fale, but with it being switched out to Kojima, it definitely seems like a definite for sure that Oiwa is going through. Then the B block play-in, when you're off camera, I was mentioning, Chase pinned Yoshihashi in the Tanahashi Jam, and so I'm wondering if that is a good sign that Yoshihashi is going to, get some comeuppance and beat Chase and keep him out of G1.
Or they're just beating Yoshihashi like a government mule, as famed New Japan correspondent Jim Ross liked to say.
That could be it too, as Chase has his new horrible cowboy music, and his package pile driver now has some new cowboy name. I forget what they called it now. So yeah.
You got a favorite West? Do you like Westerns, Jeremy?
Does Django count?
Django is a Western. That is correct.
All right, then Django.
Which Django?
The most recent one. Jamie Foxx.
Okay, because there's like okay, gotcha. Because there's like 38 Django films. I don't know if you know about that or not.
Yeah, we've talked about that on the show before. Yeah,
we talked about it.
Yeah,
nice. Yeah, Django's fucking great.
Yeah. Then never 6-man titles. I mean, I would guess.
I don't give a fuck.
Yeah, I would guess House Torture can retain.
Why would I care about that? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm sorry to hate, but it's Wato, Yano, and Yo. Like, if they win, it doesn't fucking matter. If these guys win, it doesn't matter. Like, wake me up when a meaningful, championship team is like contending for the titles again.
Right. Wake me up when we get Bishamon and Ishii running it again.
Right. That was fucking awesome. Stuff like that was cool. This just sucks. Like, I'm done with House of Torturism. And then you got them lined up with, the Goof Troop. Like, no.
Yeah.
And who knows? Maybe they'll go out there and have a banger, and I'm talking shit right now.
I highly doubt that. Yeah, wake me up when the Paulden lovers come back.
Gabe Kidd and Hiroshi Tanahashi, you would think that would be right up my alley, but it's just kind of not. I don't think that this is a match that's necessarily been built well either. Maybe there will be some meta, stuff in there between the turmoil of Gabe and New Japan and the Death Riders. Is he coming? Is he going? Blah, blah, blah. And Tanahashi, maybe all that will come to play. I don't know. Maybe Tanahashi knows, how special competitor Gabe Kidd is, and he turns it up on that night. Obviously, you think back to the Dome and Tanahashi shedding tears of joy for Gabe Kidd and all that. So maybe that will come, there'll be some emotional aspect here, but I'm not that excited for the match. I don't think they did a great job building it. And I don't know why I would care about Tanahashi challenging for the white belt after he already challenged for all these other belts and lost. Well, it just seems like, why the fuck is he getting this shot? Like, and I'm the dude, I'm the only person in the world doing a 28-part series about Tanahashi's career. So that might tell you how much I like the guy. And I don't want to see him really in this match against Gabe Kidd, honestly. And I hate to be Debbie Downer.
Yeah, I mean, I think it'll be a fine match, but yeah, this kind of came out of nowhere again with the booking of, like, I know he beat Uemura, but like he's also lost a ton of matches this year. And so just the quick win over Uemura, pinning Oiwa in his own produce show to heat him up for this match. I don't know. I feel like we could have gotten here in a different direction, but I'd almost rather them do the match non-title. Yeah.
I mean, other people might not be a fan of that, but I'm like, at least we kind of aren't sure who might win in that situation. If it's non-title, it's like, oh, maybe Tanahashi, sneaks one up on him and then could contend for the title. But they're not putting the white title on. Who the fuck knows? They just put the title on Zack Sabre Jr.
I'll say maybe we'll have another surprising title change next week, and then the Ace will go into G1 with the white belt. Oh man,
I'm at the point where I'm like, I don't even know why we're trying to analyze this shit. It doesn't make sense. It's hard to tell what the fuck is going on. Like,
yeah, Then on Sunday's show, really don't care about the junior tag title match either.
I don't either. The shit with Doki has soured me so deeply on what's going on in that division. And I wasn't high on Wato and Yo from the start. And the match is not going to be good. It's Sho and Doki. And I love Doki, but it's House of Torture.
Right.
House of Torture is a fucking blight on this company. And they always have been, but it's so much worse. It's so much worse right now.
Because there's so many of them. So you end up having like 3 or 4 matches with them on the card because there's so many of them that you have to book. My gosh. Yeah,
and they all have gimmicks. It's so many gimmicks, it fucking sucks.
Yeah. And then probably the highlight of the weekend will be Desperado defending against Kosei Fujita. And like you mentioned, there's been a lot of build-up and hype with some interviews around Fujita, and it's a big opportunity for him. Do you think he wins the title here?
I would love it. And it is the junior title, and it can switch hands unexpectedly. So there is a chance that they do that, but I'm not convinced that they're doing that, because there's been a few times this year where I thought that they could have switched the belt and they just didn't. And they seem, for whatever reason, to kind of be committed to Despy. But I feel like they'd kind of be wasting the opportunity if they didn't just like go with Fujita. So for me personally, I'm hoping they go for Fujita. I'm like 60-40. I think he's got a really good shot. 60% of me is saying they're probably going to go with Despy, but I would love for it to be Fujita.
Yeah, I think going with Vegeta would be the right call. Again, banging the drum of trying to get the young guys over and creating new stars. I think it would be a huge win for Vegeta. And, they do kind of have an out for Despy. Just have this crazy, insane death match with Jun Kasai, and will be coming in, at a weakened state. So, that could be the quote-unquote excuse for why he didn't win. But, yeah, I think Vegeta really could use this win, capitalize on that momentum, and create a new star in the division. You can't always rely on Despy and Hiromu to be the draws in this division. Eventually, they're going to break down, get older, and not be draws for that division anymore. And so you have a young guy in Vegeta who's really, really good and getting better. I think now's the time to build him up and start making him a star.
Well, that's going to do it for this week's previews. Not much in the news, but Friday night in Arena Mexico, TJP and Templario of the United Empire. You wouldn't be able to tell it based on the colors and the look and the scheme, but they're United Empire through and through, whether they want to be or not. They retain the NJPW Strong Openweight Tag Team titles over Angel De Oro and Niebla Roja. That's going to do it for the news. We got some questions here, Jeremy. We got a short episode, and I feel like we spent, of the last hour and 40 minutes, we spent about an hour 20 just talking shit about Creative and Zack and Goto. So good episode.
Yeah. So questions here. Odd Jobs in Discord says, has your opinion of cattle changed upon learning that Chase Owens is a cowboy?
No, I still find them delicious.
Yeah, I don't get why the opinion would change if Chase being cowboy. Next question here from Ram.
If anything, it kind of makes me like Chase a little bit more. Not much, but like that. If he was like a compelling cowboy character, I might get behind him because I like cowboy characters, but he's terrible at it.
Yeah, based off that promo video, I don't think we're going to get anything compelling out of old Lone Star Outlaw Chase Owens. Rainbow and St. Pig says, do any of the strange decisions of the last couple of years make more sense with the context that Aaron Wolf is coming into the promotion to what I assume will be an ace level push?
No. I mean, my understanding is that this has been in the works for a while. It's not something new, and it has sort of been an expected thing. And there's some signs to kind of corroborate that based on like things that he said in the press and the media, and some of the behind the scenes talk of people that are in the know. Plus, you just kind of connect the dots. But does any of the creative make sense to me based on Aaron Wolf coming into the company? No, because none of this shit makes sense to me.
Right. Why would you, throw away years of booking just because you think you're getting this potential star?
I will say this, in our Discord, we have different camps, people that are fans of different people there. I don't want to take credit away from anybody, but there was somebody in the Discord recently that was talking about the trajectory of Tsuji. And they're like, if you, other than Umino, we've talked about this on the show before, other than Umino, if you look at the guys that they've really pushed in a, non-static way, Tsuji's been the most traditional in a certain sense. It's like, he got these opportunities, he kept failing. He got to he won a New Japan Cup. He lost his title shot, got to the finals of a G1, didn't win that, challenged for the white belt, won that, defended it. Now he lost it. And if you were following like a 2-year story arc of what they've done with other guys in similar positions in the past, he's probably on deck to win the G1. Now, I'm not saying that that's like a foregone conclusion, but based on what has happened in the past with similar situations, it would be reasonable to conclude that he's a likely favorite, right?
Yeah.
And that would kind of position him, if that's the case, where he's got the most consistent, effective push of any guy of his generation. And then you have Aaron Wolf coming in, and I can't help but notice that there is this comparison point between what happened in 2004 or 03, 04, when it was Nakamura and Tanahashi. You know, Tanahashi debuts in 99, takes several years for him to like gear up. You know, he's in a team, he's in a stable, eventually kind of similar path. You know, he wins his first title, you know, he goes to a G1 final, doesn't win that, you know, wins a New Japan Cup, doesn't win that title shot. Like he's like consistent, and he's going through these like stepping stones to get to where he needs to be. And then suddenly Nakamura comes in, and tell me if this doesn't remind you of Aaron Wolf, an outsider martial artist being presented in his debut match at January 4th in the Tokyo Dome, given a nickname, and probably going to not go through the Young Lion route. Like, we already know Aaron Wolf's not going to be living in the dojo. Mm-hmm. I bet you if this is as big a deal as it is, he's probably not going to be wearing the black trunks and the black boots. And guess what? Neither did Nakamura. Nakamura was the supernova. He came in with gear. He came in with fucking a nickname, and he won the title within a year. He surpassed Tanahashi within a year. And it was very clear that they were on a collision course to one day headline the Dome against one another. I think that there are similarities between these two guys and what's happened 20 years ago. I'm not saying it's going to work out the same. I'm not saying it's a 1-for-1, but I see these illusions. It's close. If there's anybody right now that's in a similar position several years into their career to where Tanahashi was when Nakamura came in, it's Tsuji. And if there's anybody that's been a closer comparison to making a major, unprecedented splash in the company and debuted in a major way, like the same way Aaron Wolf has, Nakamura's like the only comparison point you could really draw to, especially from a domestic standpoint. So yeah, there's something there, I think.
Yeah, it could be history repeating itself in a way, and those guys end up being, you know, linked and being the rivals that kind of go back and forth like Tanahashi and Nakamura did.
But if you think about it, what happened to Nakamura? It was too much pressure. There was too much like concerted creative behind him to where he felt forced on the fans and they rejected what was being presented to them, and it just never did click. And he didn't have that time to like really learn and grow. And it wasn't until he like went on excursion to Mexico and came back with a whole new persona that things really worked out for him. Like those early strong style years of his are not the highlight of his career, honestly. And long-term, he ended up being 1B to Tanahashi's 1A. Tanahashi was the focused, I'm doing, you know, professional wrestling.
Yeah. And that is a concern too for Aaron Wolf. Like, yeah, could it be too much too soon? Because they over push him, and then the fans reject him because they're like, yeah, we want to see, you know, Tsuji and Oiwa and all these guys and Gabe Kidd, and now this, you know, this guys outsiders coming and surpassing them and, you know, crushing them. I do think the one thing that Aaron Wolf has working for him that Nakamura maybe didn't have was just his popularity, and winning that Olympics and already kind of having this big crowd reaction and being more of a, you know, household name in Japan might help him with fans thinking he's getting overpushed.
We'll see. I mean, I'm a fan of the look. I've seen some people be kind of critical, and they're like, he doesn't look like the matinee idol look, and I'm like,
Hashimoto.
Second biggest draw this company's ever had is Shinya Hashimoto, and there's not, like, other than Muto in the past like 30 years, there's not another domestic star that's even close, you know, business wise to what Hashimoto did in the 90s. So it's like, I don't know. I'm ready for them to bring the big boys back and have them just fucking slug each other. Like, you know?
Yeah. Rainbow's also asked, what are you most looking forward to seeing in the G1 this year?
The finals. I swear to God, I'm not even being funny. I'm not looking forward to those blocks right now. This is the least enthused I've ever been for a G1 since we've started doing this show. And the most compelling aspect of it is who the fuck is going to the finals.
Yeah.
For me personally, I mean,
well, I think especially now with like Goto losing the title and like, yeah, what is the book? Like, what are we even doing? I do think there's like a lot more potential for guys. It opens up who can win the tournament this year. I mean, I think B Block's going to be the stronger contender for great matches, like Takeshita Shingo, Zack Shingo, Takeshita Zack, Takeshita Kid Zack, Kid Shingo. I think we're going to get most of the great matches are probably coming out of the B Block.
Is there one match that you're most excited about right now? And if you had in a perfect world, what's your perfect final?
My final would be Takeshita Tsuji. Will be my final with Tsuji going over. And I think that could be, they had a great match on last year's G1. I think that could be a really great final. Just from regular block play, I would probably say either Gabe, Shingo, or Takeshita and Zack would probably be the two top singles matches I'm looking forward. And then in the A block, maybe if Goto is cleared, Goto Tsuji could be a great match from the A block.
Yeah, that's definitely one to look out for. I think for me, for the B block, it's probably going to be Gabe Kidd and Konosuke Takeshita.
Yeah.
If I just had to pick one. And as far as like the perfect, like in a perfect world, the perfect finals for me, I don't know. Takeshita Tanahashi beats that ass, rides back to the dome. Let's fucking go.
That would be wild.
Yo, listen, if the whole reason that they put the title on Zack is so that we could get Tanahashi's strongest opponent in the dome for him to face, and he beats him, I'm here fucking for it.
Dude, that would be so wild.
I mean, hey, you're trying to sell some tickets, right?
Man.
I mean, if it's Goto Tanahashi in the dome, we already know what the fuck's happening there.
Yeah. Next question from Deguchi Main. Who would you want to see Ibushi face at Forbidden Door? Maybe we get that Shingo versus Ibushi match.
I swear to God, and I mean this so wholeheartedly, and I'm sorry to say it, I don't give a fuck about watching Kota Ibushi wrestle in 2025. There's nobody that I want to see Kota Ibushi wrestle in 20. I hope he is so healthy. He's literally one of my favorite guys of all time. And there's nothing that I've seen since that shoulder dislocation arm break that has made me feel like this is a guy that I want to see continue to wrestle.
Yeah, he had his comeback match last week on Dynamite against Trent Beretta in a fine matchup. I think Ibushi, he looks like in really great shape. He looks like a 2018 Ibushi and is moving better. I mean, he did a lot of selling this match. His bumping did remind me of like classic Ibushi. He was landing on his neck a lot, so his bumping looked good. But but he really didn't have a ton of offense to really gauge like, all right, how close is he back to being peak Ibushi? And the real test is going to be this coming Wednesday, where he faces Okada on Dynamite 300.
Yeah, it's like I don't know what to expect about that. Maybe I'll tune in for that, but it's like fuck. I don't know, bro.
Yeah.
But is there like a match if it was a prime Ibushi like prime, like it doesn't have to be prime, post prime, you know, before the injury, just a healthy Ibushi. There's no shortage of matches that I would want to see with him. I mean, the Shingo match that we never got is a big one. Obviously, there's a whole multitude of opponents that he could potentially face, but he's not that guy. I saw the Marufuji match.
Yeah.
I don't know if y'all did.
Also, I don't think that New Japan is going to let him on Forbidden Door either.
I don't know. It's not really their call, right? It's not really up to New Japan to decide who goes on that show. But yeah, I mean, you have a good point there, though.
Next question here from Let's Question 7252 says Super J Cast tweeted earlier that Wrestle Kingdom should open up a lot of eyeballs with the Tanahashi retirement, Aaron Wolf debut, and questioning what should be the main event. Can you guys answer that question? And with me throwing an extra question to their tweet, how can New Japan build up the current crop of young talent to make them more valuable to the market through fan support by the time Wrestle Kingdom comes around? Hopefully my question is understandable to easily be answered.
Well, you know, I'm usually one to kind of shy away from like fantasy booking shit. But I think what needs to happen here is you don't just, in this G1, you don't just give every guy a little team. When I say every guy, I mean the Reiwa generation. You don't give the Reiwa generation guys a little something, you know? Oh, this guy got an upset win. Oh, this guy went on a little streak. Oh, fuck that. You top load your top 6 slots with the Reiwa fucking generation.
Yep.
And you have them beat the top stars. I'm talking Tanahashi, Zack Sabre Jr., Goto, Evil, Sonata, Shingo. They beat all those fucking guys, right? And you have, I'm not saying that there's not room for an established star to be in the finals or be in the play-ins, but it needs to be loaded with young guys and not no-hoper situations. It needs to be a situation where very likely you do a final that is young generation final, period.
Mm-hmm.
There's, you know, and that's the kind of situation that we should be seeing ourselves falling into going into the second half of the year. Following that, you need to have consistent creative. You need to have these young guys getting title shots against the Never champion and against the, you know, strong open weight. Oh, wait, we can't. He's not in the tournament. But the other singles champions, you know, the global champion, the IWGP champion, all that shit, you know. That's what you need to be doing to build them up for Tokyo Dome. And they really should be the major focus, not fucking House of Torture. And, you know, as much I like TMDK, but like it probably shouldn't be them either, because outside of Zach, there's not another heavyweight that they're really focusing in on other than Oiwa. And Oiwa fits into that Reiwa mold as well.
Yeah, absolutely agree with you. We need to hit the gas on these guys. We've been saying that forever now. And yeah, there's no reason why you can't have, you know, multiple of these Reiwa guys in the playoffs and potentially getting to the finals. And yeah, these guys need to be look strong. They should, yeah, you should look at the points and you should be seeing top of the block, Tsuji, Uemura, Oiwa, Umino, Gabe Kidd. Like all these guys should be racking up points and be seen as strong competitors. And not like the banana peel wins, because that's not going to get them over. That's going to continue to have them in that almost young lion light, like, oh, they're just kind of barely scraping by and can't really beat these established veterans. So yeah, they need to have a really strong G1. As far as like what should the main event be come Wrestle Kingdom, again, it's hard to predict with not knowing who's going to end up being a champion. But I think, you know, one of these Reiwa guys needs to be in the main event winning the title.
I disagree.
You think Tanahashi should be the main event?
I know that I've said Tanahashi shouldn't be usurping the IWGP title every event, and that's because, yeah, I don't think he needs to headline in Aichi over the champion. I don't think he needs to headline in Chicago over the champion or whatever the fuck. but I do think he should on his retirement show in the Tokyo Dome when it's probably the draw of the show. And in a perfect world, in an absolutely, I don't think this is going to happen, but if you're asking me, what is an actual potential? I know it's a little teensy tiny far-fetched, but I also still think it's reasonable that this could happen. You have him versus Shinsuke Nakamura in his final match in the Tokyo Dome, and Kichi Muto is the special guest referee. I feel like those three guys have if that's the most realistic big money match that you could possibly do for a true meaningful send-off, that makes sense to me.
What about passing the torch? Would you do like Tsuji comes in as champion, Tanahashi's challenging for one last title match?
He shouldn't be challenging for the title. The winner of the G1 should not be Tanahashi, and Tanahashi shouldn't be fighting for the title in his Tokyo Dome match. I guess you could, if you want to do the nostalgia route and does anybody, but like, I literally couldn't fathom Tanahashi winning his final G1. That would, it kind of fucking suck, honestly.
Yeah, that'd be wild.
And so for that reason, it's hard for me to imagine that, like, you know, of course we could do the passing of the torch thing, and that's cool, but he's kind of wrestling everybody in the whole company between now and then. Maybe the best way to figure out who he might potentially face is like anyone that he's already fought is off the table, you know?
Yeah.
So it's like, who hasn't he fought? Yeah, you're right. Tsuji. So maybe that is on a potential.
They're in the same block, so he's gonna have Tsuji, Uemura, Oiwa, Goto, Finley, Bolton. Yeah.
To me, I'm like, who's his most meaningful opponent? It's Nakamura. Yeah. Nakamura's not doing shit in his own company. They've loaned him out before. I know that this is like very much promotional hot water, but this isn't an actual AEW show. It's, you know, it's a New Japan show. It is a different like management structure. There is the realistic possibility that they make a one-time exception to send Nakamura off to do Tanahashi's final retirement match, you know?
Yeah.
And I think that there probably isn't a bigger compelling match that you could do to sell tickets for Tanahashi on that evening, even within the company.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, Tanahashi Nakamura one last time. Yeah, that'll put them butts in seats.
Unless you want to have him challenge for the title. Like, Tanahashi challenging for the title is the only other match that could realistically be the big ticket seller that him and Nakamura could be.
Yeah.
Or maybe they do him and Naito again. I don't know.
His other question, should Aaron Wolf's first big feud be against Evil?
Only if the whole point of what they've been doing with House of Torture is to just sacrifice them at the hands of fucking Aaron Wolf to get him over, then sure.
Yeah.
They want to bring him in and have him just run roughshod over fucking Evil and get his ass out of here for a long ass time, then sure.
Yeah, I want to see, you know, Suplex City, Brock Lesnar to John Cena with Aaron Wolf to Evil. Go in there, just suplex that man to death, and we never see Evil again.
I want to see Evil fucking cry in the match. Why?
See the man cry.
And I'm not talking about like, I don't mean like the like over the top fucking you know, the melodramatic. I want him to like just have tears coming down and he's not able to conceal it and he's trying to hide it, but he's in so much fucking pain that he's actually got tears coming out. That's what I want to see. that sniffle, the quick wipe away. That's what I want.
Yeah. Aaron Wolf just needs to destroy the whole House of Torture come January 4th.
He's sick.
Yeah. Next question, Death Triangle 720. At this point, what are you hoping for a new gen being coronation at WrestleMania 20 or an old gen guy like Goto regaining the world title?
I don't know.
I mean, if I had to choose, I would rather have a young guy be coronated over Goto getting it back at Wrestle Kingdom.
it's hard because, you know, you do want that passing of the torch. Also, at the same time, it might be like more exciting to just be like, fuck these guys. Let's just let's strap up a young dude and have one of those young dudes fight one of the other young dudes in the main event, and that's just it, you know?
Yeah.
And maybe we can focus on a passing of the torch a couple years down the road when it's more appropriate. You know what I mean? I'm sure we can probably entice Immortality 777. Aaron Wolf beats Evil and they blast the gold confetti as if it's not going to be done.
Yeah, that'd be hilarious.
You know, Naito, give him a nice little payday in a couple years. You know what I mean? Have him come in and do a Muto run. Late era Muto, come in, stink up the joint for a couple title matches, you know, hold that shit for like 4 or 5 months, and then do a passing of the torch to Suji when the time is right.
Yeah. Rambo says they play a title role of Aaron Wolf beating Evil's ass before every match he has from then on out.
Yeah, be sick.
Oh, man. Speaking of that, they should bring back the champions roll call before title matches.
Yeah, I love those. I wish they still did them.
Yeah.
But we can't because we don't have that title anymore.
Remember they created a new one, remember, for just the world title?
Yeah, and it's filled with a bunch of dudes that don't work in this company anymore. Like, oh, Jay White, remember him? Kota Ibushi, remember him?
Will
Kazuchika
Ospreay.
Okada, remember him? Will Ospreay, remember those dudes? No? Oh.
Next question from Lord_Vocal Sigan. Will Tony Khan ever pay for his crimes against Japanese pro wrestling?
I don't know. I don't know what I mean, like, and I'm pretty outspoken critic of this partnership, but I don't know. I don't know what you mean by that.
Yeah, I wonder if this was alluding to TK having something to do with Zack winning the title. But yeah, I don't think he's paying for anything.
What do you think's the most, like, is there one thing that you feel like Tony Khan probably, I would say probably the Mox run, right?
What,
if there was
that he had control over?
He had control over, a hand in that we know was detrimental in a massive way. It would probably be like the Jon Moxley run with the title that summer.
Yeah. Outside of that, I mean, also he's signed guys, but I don't know. I don't think he's had a big influence on the booking outside of that.
No.
Then last question here from Dark Soldier. If the Kenny versus Gabe rematch doesn't happen at Forbidden Door, could you see it happening at Wrestle Kingdom?
I could see it never happening again. Oh, actually, no, I'm sorry. I could see it happening again in like a year when Gabe Kidd is working for that company.
I don't know. They were teasing it through the whole build during the Double or Nothing matchup, Stadium Stampede or whatever that match was, Anarchy in the Arena. I don't know. I think that they could do it, especially like if Kenny loses to Okada, that could give Kenny something to do post that match, Forbidden Door. And it's in London. You get a big spotlight for Gabe in the country as well. I don't know. I could see it happening at Forbidden Door. Well, that's going to do it for the questions. That's it for the show this week. So next week we'll be back to review the conclusion of the New Japan Soul Tour. So remember, if you want to watch our show live or listen without ads, you can sign up at patreon.com/KI Strong Style. You can also make a donation by visiting socialbooks.com/donate and click on the donate button under the Keeping It Strong Style logo. Make sure you connect with us on social media on X and Blue Sky. Follow us at KI Strong Style, at Social Suplex, at Jeremy L. Donovan on Facebook. Follow us at facebook.com/Social Suplex and the Wrestling Squared Circle Facebook group. On Reddit, on the Pro Black Guy, just Keeping It Strong Style. On YouTube, we're at Social Suplex. You can join our Social Suplex Discord server to interact with us and other wrestling fans. You can email me, Jeremy, at socialsuplex.com, and check out all the other shows that we have here on the Social Suplex Podcast Network. One Nation Radio hosted by Rich Latta and James Boyd. All Things Elite with Floyd and Austin. Imps, WWE Adventure with Implications Matthew Mayer. Wrestling Art with Slings. Tunnel Talk with Ali and Leah. And the Trish and Wrestling Trish and Sarah Wrestling Podcast. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a rating and review, and we'll catch you next week on Keeping It Strong Style, the ace of podcasts.
Ichiban.
Thank you for listening to Keepin' It Strong Style. We'll see you next time.